In today's video, I'm going to be answering the questions you've asked of me with regards to the Toronto real estate question and answer. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. As always, you can find my contact info in the description box with regards to my Gmail, my Instagram, and my office information. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any further questions about anything discussed in this video, or if you have any general inquiries with regards to the Toronto/GTA real estate market. Lastly, as I always say, if you happen to enjoy these videos and find my content valuable, feel free to support in terms of a like and a comment and a subscription. It's greatly appreciated, but as I always say, you're not obliged to do so whatsoever. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get to the point of today's video, which is yet another Toronto real estate Q&A. I believe number 4 or number 3 actually, where I answer the questions you asked of me on my community tab when I put up the post asking for your questions. And some of you got in touch with me via Gmail and Instagram as well. So let's get to the questions, shall we? Question number 1, what is your opinion on 33 Harbour Square, the 45-year-old complex for an end user? I am seeing a steady year-to-year increase in property values in that complex and would be interested in hearing your professional opinion. And what do you think of it versus Tridell's 10 York or Menkes Harbour Plaza? Now, taking your question at face value, as you said, end user experience. So we're gonna mainly adopt an end user's perspective, but we're not gonna discount obviously appreciation. Even an end user, right, cares about how much their units or their property appreciates in value. But mainly adopting an end user's perspective, of all the 3 things you mentioned, I would rank them as such. I would rank 10 York number 1. I would rank Harbour Square, so the older complex, 33, 50, 65. Harbour Square number 2, and I would rank Harbour Plaza, the newer development in terms of the buildings 88 and 100, number 3. Breaking this down a little bit more, in terms of Harbour Square, obviously I've represented sellers and buyers in those buildings, and it's definitely one of the best buildings in the city of Toronto and downtown Toronto for end user experience. It's a very mature building, obviously 45 years old, but it's also a very dignified building, right? You don't have building's not poorly kept. It is older, but it's not poorly kept. There's a lot of care given into the building. A lot of your neighbors will be unit owners, so speculation in the building is far less. And that's partially the cause of the higher maintenance, right? Very much so an old building, the maintenance there, you're looking at 82 cents per square foot. So obviously a lot of investors, a lot of condominium investors who are only operating with 20 to 25% down are gonna stay away from a unit that has 80 cents to 90 cents per square foot in terms of carrying costs. And of course, from the end user's perspective, is a high maintenance you have to pay, but at the same time, once again, it has an impact of keeping out a lot of investors and speculators, which sometimes is detrimental to the end user experience in terms of Airbnbs and a lot of turnover in terms of your neighbors being tenants all the time. The opposite is the case really with the new Harbour Plaza, 88 and 100 in terms of the Menkes development. Now, admittedly, some of my clients I've worked with, typically the younger people, love a boisterous building. You know, a lot of people buy into the city of Toronto for the nightlife and for the restaurants and bars and clubs and whatever else is part of the nightlife experience. And once again, a lot of my clients, younger in terms of the demographics, don't mind the louder, more boisterous buildings. A lot of the unit owners are tenants and Airbnbs are a risk in Harbour Plaza. And you are right to notice that Harbour Square is showing value appreciation despite it being around 16% cheaper than the rest of waterfront in terms of price per square foot, at least in the last year and a half. So it's definitely going to be a much slower appreciating building. It's definitely going to be costlier in terms of maintenance, but from an end user's experience, it's better suited for you. And 10 York, obviously, I would probably have to say is the best mix of both worlds in terms of having the maturity and the dignity of Harbour Square, but at the same time, more future growth potential and a younger crowd in terms of nightlife and being a boisterous building right by Scotiabank Arena that comes with Harbour Plaza. Anyways, moving on to the second question. Any advice for first-time home buyers on single income With the implementation of the stress test and real estate appreciation not keeping up with our salary, is there still hope for current and future generations to afford a property in Toronto? I'm going to maintain my general philosophy and approach of honesty. I can't, in all honesty, tell you that you should be optimistic about your chances or most younger generations' chances of getting involved with the Toronto real estate market. Now, although in your question you stated the city of Toronto, I'll take that to mean more generally the GTA. And once we expand things to the GTA, it's not as if chances improve for a lot of younger single income individuals, but obviously your options open up. And in that same vein, my recommendations amongst many to people such as yourself is obviously to save a lot and keep a good credit score and try to contribute towards a working down payment. But I would prioritize, and this is if you really want to get involved with the market as soon as possible, I would potentially prioritize affordability in terms of cheaper options in the outskirts of the GTA, some cases not even the GTA, over distance, right? You're going to have to go a longer distance, but you'll find some affordable options in terms of freehold properties that need a lot of work, a lot of older bungalows that you can get as of the recording of this video in the outskirts of the GTA. And if you were to maintain that property and potentially rent it out for 3 years, and it is a bungalow, and in the same period you live with family or you rent and split the rent amongst your friends, so it's cheaper and less of a burden for you, the value appreciation of an expertly picked bungalow in the outskirts of the GTA, in some cases not even GTA, in 3 years is going to outpace, generally speaking, is going to outpace price increases in that same 3-year period. So in 3 years, you'll be operating potentially in terms of rental income of $100 of a loss to $100 of a gain, but the value appreciation of that bungalow would far outpace what you're losing in terms of cash flow and the average increase in prices in the city of Toronto. So you'll stand a better position as a single earner to buy something within the city of Toronto or more central GTA in 3 years if you were to implement this plan. Other options available to you are studios, but not a lot of people in terms of lifestyle do like studios. If you're out there and you like studios and you're okay with living in studios or owning one, you're definitely the exception to the rule. A lot of people like studios for investment purposes, and the tenant turnover for that same reason is very high because a lot of people are just trying to get out of studios as soon as possible. But for your purposes, I would also consider studios as well. But overall, in terms of how optimistic I am in terms of affordability for younger generations, especially such as yourself, single earners, I'm not that optimistic. But as recently discussed, there are plenty of measures that the city of Toronto is looking to implement in terms of inclusionary zoning and mandating developers to build affordable units for rent and obviously purchase and sale. So maybe that can be a sign of cautious optimism. Moving on to the next question. Hi Sam, love your videos. Thank you very much. Currently on the lookout for a 1+1 or better. I work in downtown core, but I don't mind commuting a little on the Yonge line. And my priority is price growth and rental potential. Do you recommend buying a good built condo, Tridel, Menkes in North York, or would you suggest a downtown condo, even if it's smaller and the price per square foot is higher, like the one I saw in Icon 2? So let's take this one by one. First and foremost, obviously, I don't know how much you're going to put down. 20%, 10%, 30%, even 50%. I don't know. I don't know what your income is, and I don't know how much you would get approved for. Thus, as a result, I don't know what your budget is. So that caveat aside, based purely on what you have provided me, I would have to say, if you're going to go for downtown, try to stick to your 1+1 criteria. If you're going to go to North York, look into 2-bedroom. Let me break it down like this. The average sold price of a 1+1 in downtown Toronto in the month of November, at the date of recording of this video, has been $730,000. The average sold price of a 2-bedroom in North York has been $715,000 to $720,000. So you're looking at the same price range, but the rental yield for a 2-bedroom in North York is higher. So comparing the rental yield, a 1+1 in downtown, the average rent has been around $2,300. The average rent for a 2-bedroom in North York has been around $2,500. For lifestyle and proximity to work and future value appreciation, so what stands to appreciate the most in terms of proceeds from sale, I would probably have to say look into downtown in terms of 1+1s. In terms of fair value appreciation, but better rental yield and also a better tenant portfolio in terms of the people who rent in North York, 2-bedroom units in North York tend to be more established, mature working professionals or even families, whereas families don't really necessarily rent downtown 1+1s and you're working with a riskier tenant portfolio. So instead of giving you one answer or the other, I would probably have to say, if you're looking for downtown, stick to 1+1s. And if you're looking to 1+1s, stick to downtown. And if you're going to look into North York, try to avoid 1+1s and go towards 2-bedroom options. Although these 2-bedrooms options in North York, and by the way, C7 and C14, I would avoid Leslie Donmills, so C15 and C6. If you look into 2-bedroom options in North York, stick to C7 and C14, and also look into older buildings. What do I mean by older buildings? I mean buildings that are 10 to 20 years older. Although your carrying costs will be much higher, these are already well-established, well-maintained buildings that once again do have higher carrying costs. But reckoning back to earlier in the video when I was talking about Harbour Square, you know, obviously for the higher maintenance fee, because it's an older building, you get all the upside of that as well. But obviously 1+1s stand the best chance of growing within a 3 to 5 year timeline, right? And that's another thing as well I should have added in the caveats. I don't know what your timeline of investment is. Now, touching quickly on what you mentioned, Icon 2, Icon 1, this is for those who are unaware, 250 Wellington and 270 Wellington. I actually bought recently a condo in 250 Wellington with a client, and I love these buildings. These are Tridel buildings. As I always say, Tridel is like the Apple of Toronto condominium developers. There's a reason Tridel have the most expensive per square foot in terms of pre-con. Their builds are really quality builds, especially if you have a 4 to 5 year timeline. The Icon buildings, Icon 1 and Icon 2, amongst other buildings as well, but these two in particular, because you put them in your question, are really good options because right now you actually have a chance to buy lower than usual. So moving on to the next question, is the gap in pricing between pre-con condos and resale condos sustainable? Seems the gap is just getting wider and wider as no developer launches their project at the same or lower price than the developer before, especially reputable developers. Long story short, what I would have to say, once again, it's very hard to predict the future, but I think the gap between resale and pre-con is going to become a little smaller, still sustained, but a little smaller in the city of Toronto. And I think the gap between resale and pre-con is going to sustain and widen a bit more in York region and in GTA. But unless there are some restrictions on speculation, I highly doubt that the gap will significantly be minimized by any means, simply due to the fact that large portions of pre-con purchases are made for investment purposes, and people who purchase pre-cons for end user purposes are mostly in the minority. Thus, as a result, the speculation of pre-cons, especially within the city of Toronto and central areas of the GTA, drive up prices, naturally speaking. And with pre-cons, you are buying appreciation valued in, right? No developer is going to sell you a pre-con in 2021 at 2021 prices. They're going to sell it to you at what they're projecting 2025 or 2026 prices to be. Thus, as a result, in my frank opinion, for most investors, pre-cons are becoming less and less tenable. They're becoming less and less realistic, because with resale, what you get is cheaper per square foot without all the added risk in the premium. With pre-cons, you're paying a premium and you're basically buying blinds, and what's happening is you're risking construction going wrong or something happening to the developer, or what you bought based on the manuals and advertising materials not coming to fruition, delays in construction, all the cap fees, assignment fees. So for most investors, I would probably have to say, in terms of a cheaper option and less risk involved along with that cheaper option, go towards resale over pre-con. But once again, to answer your question, I do think the gap will get slightly smaller in the city of Toronto, but sustained nonetheless. Whereas in York regions such as Richmond Hill, Markham, and Vaughan, I think the gap will actually get a bit larger. Part of that estimation is the new inclusionary zoning laws that are mandated for developers in the city of Toronto. But obviously, once again, as I always say, I can't predict the future. If I could predict the future, obviously I wouldn't be making these videos. Okay, now to the last question of the day. Hi, firstly, I really love your real estate channel on YouTube. Thank you very much again for your kind words. I have wanted to ask you a question about 5 Hannah Avenue for a while now. What is your opinion on this building in Liberty Village? Most units are 2-story lofts. There are plans to build an Ontario Line light rail terminus right in front of the building. Normally, I think this would be beneficial for condo values, but this line won't be complete for at least 10 years from now. However, I think these stations will have 20-story residential towers built on top of them, which would obstruct the view from most of the south-facing units in the building, which already have limited views as is. Do you think property values in this condo will decrease with time due to new public transit development? The building is currently 9 years old. By the time Ontario Line is complete, it will be around 20 years old. Thanks. That was a long question. But it was a long time waiting. I know you asked that question a while back of me. I'm sorry it took a while to answer that question. But anyways, let's get to the answer. First and foremost, I am familiar with 5 Hannah. As you said, it is in Liberty Village and there are 2-story lofts. And actually, I think it's one of the best buildings in Liberty Village. As you may know or may not know, I'm not the highest on Liberty Village or City Place. If I had to pick between the two, I actually do prefer City Place. And in most instances, I'm actually the exception to the rule. I think popular consensus is that Liberty Village, amongst realtors, they prefer Liberty Village over City Place. I'm the other way around. But anyways, in terms of Liberty Village, this is one of the best buildings in Liberty Village. You are right to say that the lake views are limited as is. Thus, as a result, I don't think future development will have any adverse impact on this building, especially 10 years down the line. Because there's a lot of attractive qualities about this building. Although it is more expensive than almost any other building in Liberty Village per square foot, it also has the cheapest maintenance per square foot, which obviously is common with loft units because there's less common areas and less amenities. So of course you're going to be paying less in terms of maintenance. And it's a very well maintained building with a lot of care put into it. So there's a lot of attractive qualities about this building. However, lake views are not one of them. Thus, as a result, if those limited views, as you so expertly yourself stated, go away, it's not going to have that much of an adverse impact whatsoever. Once again, especially given a 5 to 10 year timeline by any means. So in the same vein, I wouldn't necessarily worry about the limited lake views as is going away. I wouldn't worry about new transit development either because it's already by a lot of transit in terms of Gardner Expressway and the GO station and the GO rail. From my experience, it's very well maintained and it's one of the better buildings in Liberty Village. And I think if you are into lofts, I think this is a really good option, and especially a 10-year timeline. I don't foresee a dip in prices over a 10-year period by any means. Anyways, this video was long enough as is. Let me know if you have any further questions or if you have any follow-up questions or if the answers I provided to your questions did not suffice and you want more details. Feel free to get in touch with me or in the comments. As always, you can find my contact information in the description box with regards to my Gmail, my Instagram, and my office. Feel free to subscribe, comment, like, and review. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.